All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you. In today's episode of Live Coding a Game Show Runner, we are going to take another run at this thing. Episode 1 was kind of a technology disaster. Could not make it do the things I wanted to by lifting a previous bit of source code, just trying to reuse it. NPM just, the packages have changed too much in the few months since the last time I used it. So we are going to start again from scratch using just Preact create, and we're just going to accept what it gives us. But I'm going to cut over to an intro, and we'll get started.
What the fuck is this?
All right, you might have noticed I used the request metrics startup screen. We made a bunch of videos as we were building that product several months ago, and I'm just going to use that as a jumping off point to keep this kind of series going and see what's going on. All right, so we are going to start over from basically scratch. I cleared out our game show runner project that I'm hosting. This is a... I didn't intend it to be a private repo. Let's go ahead and just change that. Oh, I hate that. Change visibility. Make public. Yeah, there's no reason that needs to be private. This can just be a... Oh my God, GitHub, I hate this. Oh, GitHub. Don't be so dumb. Okay. All right. So now our game show runner repo is public in case, I do something that you want to play along with. It belongs to the Track.js organization, which is the name of my company. We do JavaScript error monitoring, which kind of plugs in nicely to this whole game show thing. So let's pull down a fresh copy of this very empty repository. I'm going to just use my terminal here and do git clone that thing. Cool. It should be pretty much done. JavaScript game show. And we will just open that up with VS Code. And we have a whole lot of nothing going on here. So I have a bunch of different versions of Node on my machine. And I want to make sure I'm using the right one. So I use NVMRC to do that. I'm going to specify I want to use 16.17, which is the latest version of the long-term support, I think. And if I do NVM use, I should now be doing that. All right. So the big mistake that I ran into the last time, I think, was I like controlling my own destiny. I like being explicit about the code that I have, what it's doing. I like seeing the config files and being able to change them. And so I tried to take my config files from another project that I had and just use it. Unfortunately, things had changed under the covers with the versions of TypeScript and the versions of Preact that I was trying to use at the time. And it just didn't work. Didn't work very well. So even though this is not how I like to build things, I'm going to use the Preact command line and just generate a project and use that as my starting point. Now, I don't like that because it hides a bunch of configuration. It's a bunch of convention-based things like this template file, just name that template file will work because of magic. And there is Webpack back there, but you don't get to see what the file is. And just a bunch of other things that make me a little uneasy. But the point of this app that we're building is just a little fun throwaway game show. And so I'm just going to swallow my pride and we're going to move forward and we're going to just make some stuff happen. So I need to install the Preact CLI. And I'm just going to go ahead and install it globally. This might go fast because I might already have it installed. I'm assuming that this is all working. Yeah. Ooh. Recursively delicious. Okay. All right, wonderful, wonderful. All right, so now we are going to just do Preact create. And it's going to give us a little menu of different things we can do. Now, I know I want to do TypeScript. I don't like all the stuff it's going to set up for us, but I want to use TypeScript. So we're just going to go ahead and do that. We're going to create it in this thing. We're going to call this the JavaScript Gameshow. We're going to go ahead and install our dependencies. I don't like Yarn. It's already a Git repository. Okay. Directory to create the app. Yes. The destination exists. Okay. JavaScript Gameshow. Yes. No. No. Yeah, sure. Force that. Let's make it happen. Oh, look at all these things I still have open. That's probably too many things. Okay. All right, so look at all this junk that it gave us. Obviously, we have our node modules. We have our source here. In our source, we have this magic template file, which will be like what the HTML base looks like, but with none of the other stuff in it. It looks like this is going to give us a service worker by default. Now, I don't think I'm going to do anything with a service worker, but hey, there it is. The index is basically just a pointer at another thing called the app, which is in components app TSX. And the app sets up a router. Now, I don't know if I love the idea of using a router for this app that I'm building, but we're just going to lean into it and we're just going to go with it. We also have a bunch of tests. I don't know how much I'm going to use those because this is very much a throwaway app that I'm only going to be the only one to ever use. And I don't think I'm going to get all that complicated, but who knows? Maybe we will use it. We have a few things set up here automatically. I think I probably want this dev one so we can play with it. So npm run dev. You know, I think we actually need to run build first so that we get one build out of it. Which, you know, it would have been really nice if npm run dev did a build of it, but whatever. Okay. Yep, let's open that website. Again, let's switch to a dev profile. Cool, cool. Okay, so here is this sample React app that got generated. Go away, DevTools. Do you ever hate that where it like I can't quite hit the drag target? Come on. There we go. Jesus. All right, so we have this home component, and then like there's these other profiles to go to other users, and it's got some junk on it, which is none of the things that I want it to do at all. But let's let's change something and see if we can get our own text, like some hello world text, to show up here and make something change. So in our main app.tsx, it looks like here is where it is splitting things up into different pages. So the root path is going to the component home, which I imagine is stored here under routes, home, index.tsx. And that looks like what we were seeing. So let's just change this to hello world and make sure that this all works. Hey, it even did live reloading for us. That's pretty neat. Okay, I like that a lot as our starting place. So I'm going to do one more thing here before I do a commit, and that is let's put together our plan again, which is what I started with yesterday, but we didn't really get very far. I like to do that with just, a simple notepad document here. I don't actually like checking it in though, so let's just mark that as ignored. And we are going to build this app. So let's maybe sketch out what it is we're doing again. I'm going to switch over here to my iPad. Okay. So as you might recall from last time if you watched, this is essentially what we were going to build. We were going to build this quiz, this JavaScript Gameshow quiz based on who wants to be a millionaire. And so roughly the UI needs to have like these kind of elements. There'll be like the name of the player. There's going to be like this question thing right here. Let's switch to a different color so you guys can see what I'm talking about. There's this question thing right here where we'll show that, and then 4 different like multiple choice answers to it. The player will have like a couple of different lifelines that they can use, like 50-50, ask the audience, ask a speaker, and they're working up like a score sheet. There'll be like different prizes or something like that. We'll need like a final answer button, because when the user says, hey, I think it's, option B, I get to like really delay the game and build the drama by saying, are you sure about that? Final answer, final answer. And then for some of the questions, there might even be a timer on it. So these are all the different things. So now here's where things might change. Because we're using routing in this new default app, we might just want to take advantage of that. And so what we'll do here is there'll probably be like a route called like game/new or something like that. That's going to create, ask the user for their name. We should probably generate some sort of ID for it. We'll initialize like the score and their lifelines that they have. And then we're going to redirect them into their game. Now the game itself will, use those things and kind of put that UI together, ultimately dropping them at a result based on the rules that we come up with. There's also another like object that we need to deal with, which is the questions, because the questions operate independently of a game. We're only going to have so many questions that we're ready to show, and we don't want to show the same questions in 2 different games because the player will have seen the previous game. So we're going to need like some sort of like question manager, question controller to like handle all that. Now, I don't think there's going to be any multiplayer of this. It'd be cool if at some point I could do audience participation, but that's a bit of a stretch goal. So for now, all of this state information, we are just going to stick here in local storage somehow. And hopefully JavaScript isn't going to be a big steaming pile of poop for us, and we're going to be able to do this. So if we take this idea and go back to our code, what are the things that we need to be able to do? We need a new game page. And that new game page needs to take the player's name, and it needs to init some sort of like game object saved, whatever. Then it needs to redirect to the game URL, whatever that happens to be. So I'm thinking it'll be something like game/game ID or whatever. If we can get that done today in this episode, I will be very pleased if we can pull that off. As a stretch goal, if our game page can render a question, and let's just see how far we can get there. Okay? Okay. I'm going to commit this since this is going to be a good starting point for us. Let me just make sure this got everything in here I need. Sure, we can start at version 0. I don't love this. I like locking in my versions, but we're just going to go with it. I don't want to spend a lot of time fighting this thing. We're just going to accept that the Preact CLI knows what we're supposed to do, even though I think it doesn't. We're just gonna take it as read. Cool. That is kind of neat that it actually generated a README. That's fun. And I don't think I need to tweak any of that. So that's a giant pile of changes. Init from Preact CLI commit. And I'm just working right off of the main branch, because honestly, I'm the only one touching this thing, so it's fine. Of course there's vulnerabilities. I don't care. All right, let's go with our first thing. Let's figure out if we can get a new game page going. So how this thing seems to work is in our app TSX, we have some different routes. I think I could probably just define a new one. So if I go to route path, let's call this game/new. We are going to render a component that will be what? What should the name of this component be? New game? The new game component? Seems like a fair thing to do. So we probably need to create that. I guess the structure here that they're using is that. So we're going to call this, I don't know, how do we nest that? I guess what I could do is call this, put a folder called game and a folder in it called new. And in there I will create new game.tsx. I'm not actually sure if that's even going to work, but we will give it a try. And then we're going to import new game from routes game new. I guess they're calling it index in all of their folders. So maybe that's what I should do here too, is call this index.tsx. And it's yelling at me because there is probably nothing there. So let's take this home folder as just an example, and we'll throw it in here. We don't have a style for this thing yet. We're going to call this new game. Cool. Where did style.home come? Import style. All right. Well, I don't think I want to do that yet at all. So we're going to just throw that away. And we're going to call this start a new game. And let's see if we can just get that running. So we don't have a link to it anywhere, but maybe this is just going to work. Game/new. I mean, it's styling is all wrong, but there it is. I don't like this header. I think this thing is going to be in our way because the game's not going to have a header. This isn't going to look like a web app. This is going to look like a game show. So let's clean up here a little bit. If we go back here, it looks like that's just on that. Let's just take that off and we'll kind of fix that up. Hey, look, there we go. Start a new game. Sweet. And I'm going to change this div to a main just because I think that is more semantically correct. And there we go. We should probably have a way to get here from our main page. So our home, whatever that is. So this is our home component. Let's just put a link here to something. Start a new game. And this will go to, there's probably like a fancy semantically correct way to do this, but we're just gonna like hard code it because who cares? So now from our home page, we can start a new game and we land on the right page. Cool. So we have a new game page and now we need to take the player's name and init some sort of game object with it. So I think what we're probably going to have here is a form of some kind. Now, of course, you can do things without forms because this is JavaScript, and JavaScript lets you do things that are incorrect, but it is semantically a form. There's no reason for us not to use a form element to just utilize some of the native functionality of the browser. So in our form, we need an input. And that input is going to be of type text. And it's going to be called name. And it's going to be required. And maybe we'll put a placeholder, what is your name? And then we will have a button of type submit, start game. Ooh, maybe let's maybe lean in on our branding. Are you ready to be a JavaScript error? I'm using these funky letters because we're going to be running this game in Norway, and their version of Do You Want to Be a Millionaire uses, I don't even know what this thing is called, but uses that letter to use that sound error. So we're just going to kind of go with it. All right. Ooh. Look at that. Are you ready to be a JavaScript error? What is your name? Okay. So now we need to do something with this, because if I was to just fill this thing out now, it's going to do the default behavior of the browser and just do a get back to the same URL. And being that we're all just operating in JavaScript land, probably don't want to do that. We probably want a onSubmit, like some sort of onSubmit function to do something here. So let's see. At this point, we can create a game object, and we need to talk about what owns the game. Like at some point we need like this master state of, regardless of what screen we're on, we can create a game, we can update the score of a game, we can add a question to the game, we can do whatever. So I like to use the word controller to talk about this, just because it works well in my mind for like comparison with other server-side MVC kind of frameworks. And so I'm thinking that there's a thing called the game controller dot new. And to that, we are going to send it a name of what? Of what? The submit function is going to have a event that comes into it, and that will have like e.target.event. name would be like the shortcut to this, but I'm feeling like I'm shoving too much knowledge in this little inline function. So maybe what I need to do here is create another function. Now, how does this thing want me to do it? If I was, here's the, like one of their, templated ones that has the profile page. And it's got a bunch of junk in it. A use effect and a return. I really dislike the way this functional style of Preact React. I like the other way of doing it. So let's see if we can still do that without class new game extends component of any. Yep, I know it's a duplicate. That's not right. Okay, cool. Implement, yep, it's going to implement a render. I don't use these props and state that get passed in here, so I'm just going to hide those. That's not any good. And let's take you and put you in here. And this is going to return a thing that looks like this. Oop. There, I like that a whole lot better. And let's just even collapse this. And just be really, all right, so now this thing is going to create a new game component that we don't really have any props or state that we're managing on this yet because I don't really care. And what I want this thing to do is let's have a function on here called on new game submit. And it's going to take a property E, which is a forms, an event. And I want it to do this thing, whatever this thing ends up being. And so this is just going to be this.onNewGameSubmit is what I want it to pass through. I like that. Okay, so const form is going to be e.target as HTML form element. And now we're going to create a new game from whatever this game controller ends up being. And so I should be able to reference this from form dot. Now there is a thing called name because there's an input here called name. Dot collection form dot. I'm not sure if that's the way I want to get it. I don't recall the name of it. HTML form get input value. Sure, slash or Stack Overflow. What do you got to tell me? From data. That's not. I don't love that. Is that a thing? Cool. All right, so now we just need to create this thing called the game controller. Where do you think a good place for this thing to live would be? I don't know if it is a component because it's not really going to have a UI. It's not going to really be that kind of thing. I think it might just sit at the top level as far as I'm really concerned. So I'm just going to create a new thing called the game controller. And the game controller is going to be a singleton because, all right, so I like making singletons. They're easy to reason about. They're easy to, control who owns them because there's only ever one of them in the app. The downside to singletons is that they're harder to test. But there's ways around that, and only if we actually need to end up writing some tests around this, which I'm not convinced I'm going to. So for now, I'm just going to make this thing a singleton. So I'm going to create a class called underscore game controller. And I am going to export default game controller const game controller equals new game controller. I think that's the, no. Yeah. Sure. Okay, cool. So now we have a thing called game controller. It needs to have a new function on it. Maybe I should call this new game. That seems like it's probably a better name. So we're going to have a method called new game, and it's going to take options, which is going to be a game options type, which we need to define. Export type game options is going to have at least a name property. And for now, let's just make sure this whole thing is working and do console log starting game with options. Now we should just need to import you. Now we're importing game controller. What do you not like? Null. Oh, because this could return null. We're just going to have a fallback for that, so it's always a thing. Type file is not assignable to string. Well, we just kind of know what this is going to be here as string. Well, that was a bunch of ceremony I did not love. Okay, can't resolve game controller. Game controller. I wonder if because I created a new file, this thing doesn't like me. So let's just restart this thing. That would actually be super annoying if that's what it is. Okay, good. It's not what it was. All right, so new index can't resolve game controller in this route. Why not? Perhaps game controller needs to live in components. Maybe that's like a magic directory or some shit for this. Can't resolve source components game controller. No type errors found. Interesting. Why can't you find it? So it's in new index. Do we want to maybe go up in like relative? So maybe it's up to game, up to routes, up to root components. Oh, that's annoying. That is very annoying. Let's see if it works first. Blah, blah, blah. Okay. Ooh, it did not. Oh, you know what? We need to prevent the default submit from happening. E.prevent default. Let's try that again. Starting a new game with options. Sweet. Okay, I like that. I like that we're getting here. I really, really do not like this. So how do I set like a default location or something? Because that's super irritating. Well, maybe I can put this back out in the root of source where I wanted it. Do I just say game controller? Can't resolve game controller. Can't resolve game controller. Let's see. Well, we're using like the default, you know, whatever for Preact. Preact doesn't support. I have not edited my config, Ryan, and I did not. Okay, how do I support absolute imports? Cool. Thank you. I need to figure out how to get like alerts going for that, because that would have been super helpful to know 2 minutes ago. Okay, do you want to... Have you tried to add this to Preact config? Okay, so this is one of the things I actually really dislike about Preact, about this whole starter thing, is that like there's this magic webpack thing under the covers, but it doesn't show you what it is. You just gotta like kind of manipulate it, which sucks. Okay, sweet, that's what it needed to be. So we get like the webpack config injected in, and then I guess env injected in, and we just need to attach these two things together. Seems awful magic to me, and I don't like it, but I still can't find... All right, maybe now I can... Oh, so now Visual Studio is not happy, but this works. Is there a way I can make both happy? I bet if I just say... What is in env? Oh, this is what I hate about, like, I have to like discover what happens to be on these objects. I went looking for the source of these things yesterday, and I found like nothing. Okay, here's this object. I guess current working directory is what I want, because that's what... That's what Visual Studio also wants to use. maybe I don't love that though. Yeah, okay, I know it's all written out. It's just, it's not good. I take it you're involved in the project somehow. It's okay. We'll need to get paths. My TS config needs to get paths. Base URL. Okay, so where the debugger should locate TypeScript files instead of the source locations. No, that's source map options. Okay, so if I do that there and this here, then will this be happy if I do? No. All right, let's find the Preact wiki. Has the most up-to-date information, but it's not in this page. I understand that it might be documented somewhere, but like it's not documented where I can find it. Absolute paths. All right, so I guess this is good enough. This is probably is not semantically correct. I should probably not like allow things to be imported from outside of source because it's probably just not a good idea, but I don't care and I don't really want to fight this thing anymore. This is definitely like a documentation usability fail. But doesn't matter, doesn't matter. Let's just keep going, keep going. All right, so now we have, we have our start game page that initializes with a thing here, and so that's all pretty cool. Now we actually have to init some sort of game object with it. So how do we want to manage that? Game objects, I want to like maintain some sort of state around them. It needs to like persist between things. I think I just want to stick it in local storage. There might be a better option down the road where I save them somewhere else, maybe into a server, maybe into an API of some kind. But for now, I think I just want to like serialize them to local storage. So we should create a game object. What does a game look like? Export type game. what is in a game? A game should have an ID, I think, so that we can like reference it on URLs and stuff. We should have a player name, which is a string. I think I should probably call this player name too. That would probably be a better name. And there'll probably be other things here, but I don't think I care yet. I probably broke something with this because this is now called player name. Thank you, TypeScript. I think I probably want a more complicated thing around the game object. Let's actually put that into its own class file. Export class game. And a game is going to have these things. Cool. Going to have a constructor. There isn't a super on it. We are going to take game options, which we will just steal from the other thing. What are you unhappy about? Has no initializer in it. Yeah, there will be an initializer though. Okay, this dot ID equals whatever, this dot player name equals ops dot. Let's just take this. We probably want to take let game equals new game with options. And then we're going to do something with it. But for now, let's just console log game and see what we get. All right, we need to generate an ID here. Which I Google this every time because I never remember exactly what it is, but it's like, it's this thing. Yeah. Which we're just going to put into some sort of like utils folder. We're going to call uuid.ts. And this is going to be export function, whatever. Yes, sure it can. Oh, all right. We should just implement this guy. Yeah, let's just implement that guy. All right. npm install uuid save. Throw you away. We don't need you. Bye. Our game is going to be UUID 4. No, we need to cool. Let's try that again. Oh, we restart. Hey, all right, we have an ID and a player. Cool. New game page, player's name, we init a game object, and now we just need to save it somewhere. So where are we going to save it? The game controller should probably own that sort of thing. I'm thinking we have some sort of save game that takes a game and does something with it. Probably want a little helper for local storage dot set item game dash game game dot ID, and we're going to take a JSON dot stringify the game. This dot save game game. So now if we go and look in our application, local storage, whatever, we have this thing right here. Cool. Game dash the game ID. That's everything we need to know about it. All right, we are at a good stopping point, I think, for task 1. We now have a new game page that takes the player's name and we init some sort of game object. So what did we do to get here? Well, we had to bring in that UUID package. We had to create a new game route and reference that route in our home page. Our main application had to define that route. We created an object that represents a game itself and a game controller that's going to manage that life cycle. And then we had to add this thing so that we could reference things directly, which I don't love again, but whatever. Okay, create a new game and save to local storage. All right. Boom. So now once the game has been created, let's redirect to a game URL that exists. So /game/the game ID is our next goal here. Let's clean up here a little bit. We need something here in our app to render this. So just like in the example, they have a profile user. I think we have a profile/game ID that is going to render the component of, what's the name of this component? The component that's showing the running game, the game game display, game status, game board. Game board. Yeah, all right, I like that. Game board. The game board. Sure, that's good. We're going to import game board from routes game. Where would be a good place to put this? So here, they just put it inside of profile. To handle both cases. Oh, that was like a default user or default value. That's okay. Let's go in here and we're going to create a new folder called a board. And in there, we will just create a new index.tsx. And as a starting place, let's just copy you. Game board. Not going to have that guy. All right, so a game board is going to need to load the running game. So just like here, how did the example get the current ID? It looks like it's going to come in on props, interface props. So does that indeed? So these two properties are props. So does this mean that if I define interface game board props is going to be game ID as a string? Does that mean I'm going to be like, can I just do props dot game ID? Will that work? Do we think that will work? Let's find out. I'm not asking it to do anything, just take basically whatever I put in there and render it. That seems to work. Look at that. Game ABC. Cool. Cool. So the first step, let's render or let's redirect after we're done creating it. So when we're done with our when we're done creating the new one, right here, after we're done, this should probably return the game object. I'm not sure that we need to handle this whole level of indirection with like the game controller needing to create it. That seems like an unnecessary pass-through. This is turning into more of a game repository than a game controller. But yeah, let's not do that. I don't like that. So let's do this instead. Let game equals new game. And the game is going to have this thing in it. We're going to need to import game. That's fine. And then game controller dot save game, because we're still going to need to do that. That still makes sense, I think. And then we're going to redirect the user to this new game. new game is no longer a thing that we need to do. How do we redirect the user? There's probably like a router way to do it, but let's just do a quick Google in case there's a way. Preact router redirect. Lazy loading, active matching, a link, okay, that's cool. Directing route changes. Route. We just call route. Okay, let's do that. We're going to route to /game/game.id. I assume that the second property is whether it's being pushed to the history API, so that like the back button works. Replace. False. I don't want to replace it. I want to be able to go back. All right, so we're going to start a new game. My name is XX. I'm going to go, it redirected, I go back. Sweet. I love it. I love it. All right, so now on this board, we need to do more than just say that this is a thing. We need to be able to like get our game. So we're going to need a constructor, I think. And in our constructor, what happens in our constructor? What happens in our constructor? Yeah, super goes first. Duh. Ugh, brain fart. We need to get the game. So I suppose we could do that. Something changes of the game. The board will be the only thing knowing about it. So the game could really be part of the game board state. That seems decent. Okay. So if we have an interface that is game board state, it's going to have a game, which will be a game that we'll need to bring in the definition for you. And then when we're first setting up, we're going to say this dot state equals game is going to be game controller dot get game. This dot props dot game ID. Right? Yeah, I like that. We need to implement get game. So we have save game. Maybe for parallelism, we should call it load game. Yeah, load game. Load game is going to take a game ID, which is a string, And we're going to need to do something like that, where we're going to go local storage dot get item, and it's going to be that. Let game string is that. That might be null. So if game string, if there's no game string, if it's junk, then we are going to return null. This value is going to return a nullable game object. Else we are going to do a return json.parse of game string as game. And you are not happy because null is not assignable to game, because why doesn't it let me do that? TypeScript return nullable. Yeah. Or, yeah, or null. Okay, yeah, that's fine. So we should probably get that first. All right, so then if we render it, there's a chance that the game is null. We landed on a garbage URL. That's okay. We're going to return if this.state.game, if there's no current game, then we are going to return game not found. Otherwise, by, let's see, this.state.gameID.game.id by this.state.game.name.player name. Okay, so garbage, ready. Oop, something's not happy. Cannot read properties of undefined reading game ID. This.props. Huh. So somewhere along the line, we needed to be getting that. And props was defined in render, but it's not defined in the constructor. Preact router props. Oh, yeah. Okay. Duh. All right, so props. Let's try that. That, I think, will work better there. Cool. So now we have the ID by SDF. It's a thing that was actually kept and saved. Let's have a look back in our to-do list and see what we're... So we are now redirecting a valid game URL to this game ID. So that's cool. As a aside, just to help us with like development so we're not constantly like recreating things, I'd like to put like a list of the active games and maybe like a reset button here. So we're going to do like a little stretch goal. List of games, clear games. But right now that one is done. So let's commit. We have a game controller. The game controller can now load a game. Oh, we should check the bad state here. So if we put in garbage, blah, blah, blah. 404 game not found. Perfect. The app now has a game board. That's cool. Here is our game board state. That file is going to get big as we go. And this thing now just creates the game object itself, uses the game controller to save it, and does its thing. I like all of that. So we are going to be game board to render a saved game, a loaded game. All right, list of games. I think that one is not going to be too bad. Here in our routes home index, we can just do a h2 current games. I suppose it should be an ordered list if we're diligent about this. And we should get our games. So like let games equals game controller dot get all games. Now obviously we don't have that function, but we should. So let's build that. Probably call it load. Or no, just get. Get's fine. You know, I don't like that. We're going to go back to get. We broke stuff when we changed that, though. Board, get game. It's fine. All right, so now we're going to get all games. So local storage dot So if we go to our local storage, we have a bunch of stuff in here. There's 4 things in local storage. Dot key. Okay, so what we need to do is we need to create a loop here. So var let I equals 0 while I is less than local storage dot length I plus plus. Let the key equal local storage at key dot I. If the key dot starts with game dash, we're going to assume it's our thing. And go we'll just use this dot get game key and games dot push that, and then we will return games. Yeah, this dot get game, we should do, let game equals this dot get game key if game then. Probably won't be null in that case, but always a good idea. Game. There we go. Ooh, it's very unhappy with something. Probably not done. Yeah. Yeah, I know. Game controller dot get all games. Yes. Yes, this is the other style, and it is unhappy with it, so that's okay. Let's maybe just put it up here. I think that'll be fine. Games dot for each game. Oh, I hate this part of React. React render list of items. An array of objects. Oh, yeah, cool. Yeah, this thing. That's basically what I want to do. Game list. We're going to map games, game, and this is going to be an li with an a tag that'll go to, actually I think this will be what, a link? I don't know that I need, is this normal as from active class? I don't think I need that. So I'll just use a plain old thing. Slash. All right, so that didn't work. Why didn't that work? Let's go to home, home, games, get all games. Okay, that didn't work the way we wanted it to. That's fine. Step in. Ooh. Game controller. Let's just do it there. Get game with key. Oh, because not. Yeah. The key contains game dash, and I didn't use game dash, so I need to split that. Key dot split on. If I have a thing called game dash stuff dot split on game dash, I get empty and then the thing. Let game ID equals that. Let's try that. I bet that'll work better. There we go. We got game. We got game. Sweet. Current games. Those are all the games we've saved. I like that. I love that. I'd like started at some sort of like time concept on those so that I know what's going on. Do I care? I don't know. Maybe I'm overthinking it. No, I think I wanted time. So let's go to game and let's put a public date started on date time. And I think that's a Luxon thing. npm Luxon. Pretty sure that's the thingy. Yeah, date time. Sweet. Npm install Luxon save. Come on. You know where to find it. Don't make me think for you. Yeah. Import date time from Luxon. Come on. Oh, types. Fucking types. Okay, so now we got to start it. So this dot started on equals, I think it's just new datetime. A quick tour. Datetime.now. Cool. Let's just see what it renders. It's probably gonna be terrible, but oop. Yeah. I bet it doesn't know. Oh, well, one thing, these games don't have it because we didn't do it yet. So we need to put like a little button type button that's like clear games. On click, we're going to game controller.clear. Yep. I might have to get smarter about that if I store other things in local storage, but for now, it's good enough. Oh, I need to I don't know, refresh. See, I always end up wanting the full module. Never fails. Change the for each into map. Oh. No, that doesn't work here. I think we're probably talking about this guy up here, right? Yeah. Because here I couldn't use a map because I'm not mapping an object. I actually need to loop over the indexes because it's a weird old API. Man, I got a lot of people watching though. That's cool. Okay. So I need to refresh this if we click on this. So I'm actually going to switch this to this style of any render returns a child. What is it? Component child. I think I gotta return that. There we go. And then we can actually put the on clear games E as an event thing here. This dot on clear games. And then route false. Oh, wrong. Whoop. Whoopsie. True. Start a new game, something cool. Let's go back to home. Game started at sweet, clear game, nice. All right, maybe let's render this a little bit cooler. Formatting. It'd be cool to show it like started so many seconds ago. And I'm pretty sure that is a thing that we can do here. It's just about like figuring out what duration is. Okay, so let now equals date time dot now, and then for each of these games we're going to figure out interval from game dot started on to now. Why can't you automatically figure this shit out for me? Oh, well, you can't figure your shit out because you know what? This is good enough. I don't care. I don't care about that. overthinking this, Todd. You're overthinking it. That is good enough for what I care about right now. Okay. Back to to-do. List of games, clear games. We got it. Done. We brought in Luxon, so we have a simple date. We have started on as part of creating a game. We have get all games, clear game, etc. We changed the name of that guy, and we switched this from the stupid function base to the bigger one. Cool. List of games, clear. All right. We've been going for a while. I think we can do one more, though. Let us figure out how to render one question. So, there's probably some ceremony that needs to be involved on this screen about, like, are you ready to start the game? Are you ready to be a JavaScriptær? Whatever. But a more critical thing that I know we're going to end up with is just needing to render a question. So where is that going to come from? Questions, I think, actually, I think we're going to take a quick pee break and then come back. One sec. That's funny. I have been talking and describing this thing for a bit now, and nobody could hear me, but nobody really cared. So, so that's funny. Anyway, just to kind of revisit, here's kind of the flow I'm thinking between all of these things. When the user starts a game, I essentially have these 6 states, like the welcome that shows like what they can do, a pre-question that shows them here's the prize you could win for this thing. Then I'm going to show them the question itself, the result of the question that they just looked at. Then they'll either win or lose or move on to the next question based on the outcome of that. And so what I'm thinking is I will have this one game board route will have its own state, and we're just going to toggle like which of the components is showing as a part of that. So coming back out to what I should actually build, what are my to-dos here? I think I need a just rendering a question seems premature. I don't think I am ready to just do that yet. I think what I need to figure out is going no, I mean, I suppose I could. So what we can do is we can no, let's just start building this out. Let's start building out welcome and pre-question and see how far we get. I'm only going to go here for another, I don't know, not that long. We'll see. We'll see how this goes. Okay. Here in our game board, here's where we're probably going to create some more components. Here in our game board object, we have a state that contains the game. And we have this rendering thing. And right now we just have these two little bits. So what we need to do here is kind of toggle what, depending on what state we're in, is going to be what we're going to actually return in this frame. So I suppose the first thing that we could really do we could just be like has welcomed Boolean and start there. Is that if you have not been welcomed, that's where you start. Like the first time you've loaded this after the screen has been refreshed, we're going to start back on the welcome page. That seems fair. Has welcomed by default is false. Yeah? All right. So this is still totally valid. But now we're going to start getting into rendering some different things, some different components. React conditional rendering component. Let's just make sure we're doing things the right way. So if that, then we're going to log that. Otherwise, cool. Element variables. Okay. So what we could really do here is like const. What is this thing? Active or const. Active game screen is a component child, and then if this dot state dot has welcomed then active game screen is going to be game welcome. I mean, there's really not anything else in this, so we could really just return that. All right, so then we have like a default state to fall through. We don't have anything called game welcome yet, so we should. So let's just start creating some components. Game welcome is a new component that we're going to have, and it's going to have an index.tsx file in it, and that's all cool. And just like our board, it's going to do a bunch of stuff like that. So let's just copy paste. I don't know if it's going to have that stuff in it yet or not, but it's going to be called game welcome. And we'll start with any. And we won't start with anything there. And we will just start with a return I am the welcome. Cool, so that's that, I guess. And then here we need to import the game welcome. Cool, I am the welcome. And on the welcome, let's see. On the welcome, the user will need to be like, I've done this thing. Like, yes, I accept. Yes, I'm ready to play. Yes, we're good to go. And so when that happens, that we need to communicate that back to the game board. So lifting state up. So I'm trying to figure out it's the right way to pass when the user clicks on the button, or when I click on the button saying, hey, the user's we're done with the welcome screen, whatever, what is the right way to pass that action up to the board? And it looks like it's just about passing this, like having a handle change event that I pass into it, which I don't love. So what I think I want to do instead of having all of these things passing around, I think the thing that I have named game controller is not the game controller. I think that's the game repository that's responsible for persisting data. And I think I need a new thing called the game controller that is responsible for this sort of state changes between everything. And it's basically going to wrap up the state object of game board, I think. But it's going to expose helper objects as a singleton to other things. That's a pattern I've used a bunch of times before. And I think that will work. Let's see if I can pull that all off. So the first step is, I think this has a bad name. So let's rename this little guy to rename symbol game repository. Game repository. Game repository. Game repository, update imports. There's probably a lot of people who were depending on him, but that all looks like it's good. Let's see, somebody didn't like that. Maybe I just had something stuck. Nope, somebody is unhappy. Oh, that seems okay. Where was I? Where was I? Something is broken. I still have something called game controller somewhere. Can't resort in. Source game repository, game repository, game repository. What's the problem? I don't understand where the problem is. Can't resolve game controller. Game controller. There is no game controller. Oh, I probably need to. Yep, okay. Needed to save. Just needed to save. Sweet. Okay. So now I want to introduce a new thing that is actually a game controller. Yes. And I'm going to do the same kind of thing where it is a class called game controller. And I'm going to export that. Game controller. Cool. Now the trick is I want to get state shoved into that. So I'm going to lift a little code from something else that I did, where I also happen to have a thing called game controller, just so I know what that looked like. So with this, I did something kind of dirty, but it really works super well. So I take the state object from some like root component, but I give it off to this other singleton. And I give it the get state and set state method. And it basically becomes the like owner of the state with a bunch of like helper methods, but it's super easy to access because the whole thing lives as a singleton. And yeah, I think it works great. And it's probably like, some people are probably thinking that this is a terrible idea and why would I ever want to do something like that? But it works so good. So we're just going to do it. And y'all are just going to get over it. All right, so we're going to want a thing. Ooh. Export interface game state that I don't know what it looks like yet. Yeah. Okay, what are you yelling at me? And it's not defined. Yeah, I mean, that's true. But it's right there. Fine. It's not assignable, okay? Sure, that should work. Okay, so now I have this game controller thingy. So now the game board, when it wakes up, what it should do in its constructor is this stuff can go away. So where is this thing called from? Find all references, init, game controller init. Perfect, that's what I want. This thing, when it wakes up, it is basically going to delegate all of its authority to the game controller. And the game controller is now what is going to be responsible for good stuff. So state is going to be that. We don't know what it is yet. So that's okay. That's okay. let's just add a third property. That's fine. Game ID. String. No reason I can't just do that. Props.gameID. And that just becomes game ID. Cool, cool. That doesn't need to be a thing. Let's, all right, so if state has welcomed, this is no longer on. Well, I mean, it is this. Okay. Now the game welcome component can have a button in it. Type button. Start on click is going to do something. What is it going to do? We are going to be like game controller dot start. Sure. That seems like a good enough thing to do. Game state can become part of you. This is more game board state. Has started. Has started. Start. This dot set state. Okay, so now we're checking has started and we're letting the button do its thing. So now we can say start and it doesn't do anything. Ooh, that's fun. Inside a constructor of a component is a no-op and might lead to a bug. In game board. Because it's probably doing that and it probably needs to like hang out a sec. So let's just return I don't love this, but I do not love this back and forth dependency, but I think I might be okay with it. Okay, so that did not work as I expected. So here, Game controller start. Is this even getting called? It is. Set state started true. Cool, but back on the board. Oh, that's why. Started. No, it was has started, wasn't it? If we haven't started, then we have the welcome. Oh, has started. Ugh. Has started, not started. Go, sweet. All right. So now we're able to like manage state across like the various things. So that seems to work okay. So if we go back to my to-do list, I decided not to do that question bit, or we're just not to that part yet. What we just got done was that the game board manages game state, for lack of a better word, and we can show a welcome UI and game page can render a question. Game page can render a pre-question UI. Now, and we have like a bunch of stuff to get to later. Like we got to start styling pages. We got to style welcome. We got to style pre-question. We got to style question. We got to build a scoreboard component. Build prize component. Got lots left to do. But so this is where we're at right now. Let's commit. So now we have a game controller that is going to manage state for us across this disparate set of components, so I don't have to pass things around, which bugs me. We renamed game controller to game repository to be more appropriate in its name. I really am starting to dislike the fact that these things are all called index. It makes me a little unpleased. But these are all renames of game repository to game, or game controller to game repository. The board itself, yeah, fine. Got some cleanup to do there later and whatnot. All right, so game board renders a welcome. All right, I think at this point, I'm gonna call it for a little while, call it for this stream. We got a bunch of stuff done, way more done than I thought I was going to get done, or way more done than I got done last time. We have the basic structure of our application kind of checked in, so that we can start building things out. What we need to do next is worry about the in-game flow. So how do I choose what question to render next, what prize level is going to happen, and kind of work through that flow. As part of that, we'll need to actually start figuring out what our questions are. How do I keep a data structure of viable questions for the game? And yeah, I think that's next. Thanks so much for watching.